Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk about Pokemon and why I think it needs to be revamped. Now, long story short, Pokemon is a popular video game franchise of role-playing games. And it's a pretty popular one. I mean, there have been over 14 unique Pokemon games. These are counting third versions, but not like second versions, so red, blue, and green are all one version. But I'm just making a count. I went on the internet, checked. There's been 14 different main series Pokemon games in 6 generations, each generation being a few Pokemon games that share the exact same engine. It's like if you classified Halo 3 and ODST into the same generation, but long story short, these games have been nearly yearly releases. I mean, they've come out with so many of these Pokemon games with every other year pretty much. I mean, they've come out with these a lot. I mean, they barely take their times anymore. When they're not releasing a main Pokemon game, they're releasing another game, either a remake or a third version on the exact same engine. And it's kind of gotten stagnant at best, and at worst, it's devolved into crap. I mean, let's be honest, after Generation 4, the Pokemon designs have gotten progressively worse. I mean, even including some Generation 4 designs. I mean, Generation 4 still had plenty of memorable designs, but during and after, I mean, Generation 4, it still had a few forgettable ones. I mean, so did all generations from 1 to 4, but after Generation 4, it's kind of gotten stale or went downhill, your choice. But they've really been making the same game. I mean, Generation 4, other than Wi-Fi and the physical special split, it didn't add too much to Pokemon. Generation 5, it had triple battles, and you only saw them like once in the game. And what did Generation 6 have? Some of the worst 3D I've seen in a 3DS game, and there's no excuse because there are other JRPGs. I'm even going to say the same genre because apparently if I don't, I'll get ripped off for it. So, same genre of game. There are other games in the same genre with better graphics than X and Y. And let's be honest, Pokemon, it needs a revamp. The first thing, the art style. The art style, utter crap. It's been the same, it's just like the Pokemon version of the same generic Mario art style. And just because other games does it, doesn't give Pokemon an excuse for having the same art style every year. It looks generic. It's at this point gotten old, especially when it comes to the games. I mean, you'll have the box art with the generic cover Pokemon, you'll put the game in, you'll see the same bland art style, which seems to get blander, especially with the X and Y's poorly done 3D, which, keep in mind, is actually the third Pokemon generation to have 3D, because Generation 4 actually had 3D overworlds with models. And don't believe me, just look at how the camera angle can change sometimes. But anyways, Generation 3, I mean, this is the third generation to have 3D graphics, and they still haven't nailed it. It still looks like crap. I mean, I'd rather have a well-looking 2D art style instead of this 3D stuff that they can't even pull off a good 3D art style. I mean, it just looks terrible. It's a joke. I mean, I said this in another video. It's a total joke, especially when compared to other 3DS games. Character design, it sucks. New Pokemon, especially Generation 5 and 6, you look at them, and you're like, what is this? I mean, you've got the ice cream cone, you've got the Generation 6's cotton candy and floating swords, you've got all these mediocre, forgettable designs in between the ice cream cones and the like. You've got all these other forgettable designs that are doing the same exact cliche. I mean, how many bird Pokemon, how many generic spider Pokemon do we need? How many of those do we need? You get the point I'm making. How many of those do we need? There's no need to reinvent the wheel. So let's see what else we've got here. The storylines. The storylines, they're generic. They're the same thing each time. Dude, he starts out in a town, and he has to get 8 badges after being given the stuff from Professor. I mean, at least the first 3 generations shook it up more. Generation 1, you knew what you were expecting. Generation 2, you have to deliver the egg quest, and you have the two regions. Generation 3. Generation 3 was like the last they actually tried because you had the, oh my god, Team Aqua versus Magma. And then after Generation 4, Generation 4 was a rehash of the Aqua versus Magma, except with one team instead of two. Generation 5, oh my god, Pete, I mean, they really just glossed over topics. Then Black and White 2, they didn't even try, because from what I heard it was the same stealing Pokemon storyline, because, I mean, Generation 5, it felt like I was playing Linkin Park the game, because even though they tried to make a deep and emotional storyline, it backfired heavily. In Generation 6, you had them wanting to, in an interview, make a simpler storyline, but then at the same time, had the Linkin Park music video in the middle of the game. I'm sorry, I mean the 3,000 years or whatever, 3,000 years ago plotline where, oh my god, war is bad. It's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have a simplistic storyline and then a Linkin Park song in the middle of it. It just doesn't go that way. I mean, I don't want to feel like I've got a good storyline that's worth something neat. I mean, it doesn't have to be entirely complex. It just has to be something that is better than what we're getting right now. I mean, much better. I mean, I want them to actually try writing a storyline and not just do what they do with the anime by putting out the same storyline every week. I mean, how many times will there be oh my god, team this is stealing this Pokemon, so they can do this with it, and oh, you also have to beat the Elite Four and become the champion. How many times can they possibly do that? Because no matter how many times they try to change it up, they're still trying to do the same storyline, cling to it, or, in the words of the fans, tradition, because it's just not that good. It's the same. How many times will I play this? And just because another game series can do it, doesn't excuse Pokemon. Ignore the cat, people. I have to wear it because, long story short, something medical. But anyways, long story short, just because another franchise does it, doesn't excuse Pokemon. And it's been getting more and more rehashy as time goes on. And I mentioned that, another thing I thought I'd mention, they're trying too hard just to make this game sell. I mean, let's be honest, they want to market this game to the lowest common denominator. So not only that, and one more thing I'm going to mention, the gameplay changes. Battle systems have been the same. Sure, after what? Generation 4, they stopped changing them. Generation 4, like I said, all I had was a physical special split and Wi-Fi. Generation 5, what do you have? We only have triple battles, which you saw once or twice. And like I said, Generation 6 has that stupid Omega Evolution. They're not even changing it much, because they're trying to stay in that comfort zone, and they're trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator to the point where they won't even change. They'll remove features such as the slot machine if it means you'll get a rating over 7+ in some place. They'll remove features just to water this game down to the lowest common denominator. Just look at the game corner and Hargles was over, and people were actually defending this. Just like how there were people defending terrible 3D. I mean, let's be honest, they're not even putting effort into this. It doesn't matter that 3D is so hard. If they have 550 people working on this and a 3.5-year development cycle. I've seen indie games put out better graphics with fewer people and shorter development cycles. They're not even trying anymore. You know what Pokemon needs? They need a reboot. They need to, like, take a break from making yearly Pokemon games. I mean, they need to start making them, spacing them out. They need to start making them better. They need to start changing stuff up. And about spin-off games, let me just mention, before somebody mentions the spin-off games, the spin-off games are low quality. They're terrible. They're not fun at all. I mean, they're just made to make a quick buck. I mean, Pokemon Conquest, look how easy and dumbed down that game is. They're afraid to write a storyline that actually questions anything. I mean, just look at Black and White's false start. I mean, you can see that they're afraid to change stuff. And that's what's going to kill Pokemon. if it doesn't make it already stagnant enough. It's stagnant. It's the same. And just because another franchise does it doesn't excuse Pokemon. I mean, especially when you take a few steps back. Let's see. Shin Megami Tensei. Also, another role-playing game about monsters and collecting them and stuff. Because after all, that's what the main series games are about. Of course, they also have a better storyline targeted to people who are pretty much smarter and not the lowest common denominator. You've also got you've got a Final Fantasy. That's had better games than Pokemon. You've had and even besides 13 has better games. You've got the Tales series. You've got all these other. Disgaea. You've got Final Fantasy Tactics. You've got all these other role-playing game series that do more than Pokemon does. You could name so many role-playing game series that do more than Pokemon does. All Pokemon has is a wasted concept, a setting, and some cool character design for like the older Pokemon, and that's about it really. It's got nothing to distinguish itself from the pack. It literally has nothing, and all it is a role-playing game designed for the lowest common denominator. And let's be honest, if the game really was a kid's game, there's no excuse for much of it. I played kids' games which try harder than Pokemon does. There's no excuse for many of this stuff. Even if you use a kid's game excuse, many people I see playing Pokemon are older than kids. If the game is being bought by people who aren't kids, why don't they try to pander it to that audience? Because let's be honest, many people I've seen play Pokemon who either are kids, or if you go to these anime conventions or go online, they're not kids, or colleges. So, let's be honest, they should pick an audience and target it. Either they can keep making Pokemon games for kids that are stagnant, and people with the mentality of kids, and driving off many people who want to get into it and that stuff, or they could actually try and revamp it, get out of their safe zone, realize that they might be alienating people who are like 5 years old and can play a Pokemon game without any reading comprehension because the game holds their hands for them. But they could try harder. And let's be honest, Nintendo, at this point, they're playing off nostalgia. They could either try to make a new Pokemon game that's actually worth something, or they could keep sitting in the ghetto of stagnancy, sitting beside the Guitar Heroes, sitting beside the Maddens, sitting beside the Infinity Ward Call of Duties, the ones developed by Infinity Ward after Call of Duty 4. They could be sitting beside, they'll be sitting beside the, all those other game series, like, the 2D Marios. They'll be sitting beside them if they don't change. And that's all I have to say on this issue. They need to change Pokemon because I'd rather have a Pokemon game with a deeper battle system, a memorable story, character design that's actually good, and that's fun to play, instead of the same repetitive, stagnant garbage that they've been churning out ever since, ever since 2010, maybe earlier, depending on what you want to think. Because after all, they've been afraid of change. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and please, vote with your wallets. If you think the next Pokemon game is actually going to be stagnant, don't buy it. If you desperately want to play it, go to your family video, Gamefly, or the like, and rent it. Because honestly, who's going to pay big money just to play the same game as last week's? That's all I have to say on this issue. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. And just to let you know, I'd still be a Pokemon fan. I'd still consider myself one, if they actually bothered to make the games worth playing. I guess the only thing is I can consider myself a fan of are either some of the older ones, And of course, let me mention this. And of course the characters, obviously. And the Pokemon, not the humans. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.